Here we go. Welcome back. It's Crucible Radio. This week, we're talking about Iron Banner Rift. It's upon us. It's happening.
Wow. Okay, so the beta's closed. That's a cool division. Yeah, no, I pre-ordered the game, but sure. Yeah, tell me that it doesn't work for me.
No, it's not the time. We're doing the intro to Crucible Radio. We got Crimson Doubles upon us, and we are getting hype for it.
I'm just saying, like, I was trying to play tonight, and I pre-ordered from Amazon. Like, this isn't an issue in other betas. Like, what? No way that it's full after a day.
Bring it back. Bring it back.
Unbelievable.
Fortunately, that is not the topic tonight because we're talking about Destiny instead, and we're going to share some of these big picture thoughts. We're going to get heartfelt. It gets real.
You know, if the division wants to be such a Destiny killer, I'd suggest actually letting the game happen, or else it's going to be real tough to get everyone to stop playing Trials on Pantheon.
We got a great guest. You've heard him before. He's back and he's better than ever. Here we go. Welcome to Crucible Radio.
Someone tell me why, 'cause I can't even breathe. But I can't even breathe. Try and take a moment, take back the one they've stolen. Feel that growing grass beneath your toes.
Swain, how's it going?
Doing all right, Breds. How you doing, Bones?
I'm doing wonderful. This is my wonderful voice. Hi. How are you, Birds?
There's so much pain inside you. Despite your wonderful voice, I can tell. I'm great. Thank you.
Smile through the pain. Don't let them see you cry.
Stay strong, bro.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Crucible Radio, the podcast for all things Destiny. PvP.
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 That's us. And it's a PvP week. We got an Iron Banner back upon us. Rift style. I haven't been able to play it so far this week because I'm stuck halfway across the country. I'm just thinking about taking my PlayStation with me on these work trips.
I don't know why you don't.
Do it, man.
You know what it'd be is I would be the red bar lagger playing on some hotel internet. I assume every red bar person you run into is just sitting in a hotel, happy they brought their PlayStation with them.
They're just happy to play.
In my opinion, people on business trips are single-handedly ruining the Crucible right now.
We're so sorry. We
just got to get in. Got to get in.
Got to get in there. Well, what do you guys think? You guys having fun with this one? How's the Rift working out?
I enjoy it. I'm having a good time in a full fire team. We're pretty successful. I would say we are too successful. They changed up the matchmaking a little. We are definitely meeting some teams that are, a little on the green side, and we're stomping through them, getting some mercies here and there. Not consistently, but the other night we did a whole sixes on Wednesday after they did the change, and we won every single game that we went into. Solo, it's a different story. You win some, you lose some. But that's always been the case of queuing up solo in Iron Banner, at least for me.
That's such a bonkers conversation that everyone seems to have every time Iron Banner rolls around, where it's like, oh, you can't do this team-focused thing solo? What? And people have been raging a little bit that it's just impossible. It's like, okay, that's fair. It's harder than ever. But then I just turn around and go like, remember when Clash was way easier to solo and at least join in and make an impact for your team? But everyone told me to shut up and not like Clash Iron Banner. So
you be quiet now. I really loved Clash Iron Banner for exactly that reason.
Exactly.
There are some good points there that Bungie kind of doesn't put it into their game, so you can, find friends without having to do the legwork. But, I would say that's what makes Destiny a great game, is creating your community. We're having a great time in our Slack. You could pick up a Iron Banner match, within minutes. A full fire team is 6. So, I have trouble not understanding, but feeling for those people. But,
Well, if listeners to this show want to find a cool new place to meet up with some friends, to talk about getting better in the Crucible, about learning how to do this thing well, and maybe talk about some unrelated stuff and find some pickup groups to play with, they can join the Crucible Radio Slack if they don't mind waiting in the inbox a little bit. Very popular right now, but as far as I know, still accepting applications. How can...
it's a hit.
It's a big hit.
It is a
how
big
people
hit.
find it. They should send an email.
Yeah.
Should they send it to the crucibleradio@gmail.com email address? No, they should not. In fact, it is crucibleradioslack@gmail.com. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what your skill level, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a learner, what you want to get out of it. Send that email on over and begin patiently waiting for people to sort through the emails because it's a hit.
We did come up with a new way of sorting them, and just send us your email. We may send you a form to fill out in response. It just makes it a little bit easier for us. We've been able to add a lot more people using the form, so we're learning. We'll get you in. Just be patient.
So, speaking about matchmaking, I actually wasn't there for this pre-post, now back to the way it was, or maybe a little different, but now it's connection-based again, the rise and fall of skill-based matchmaking. You guys have been playing it. Have you noticed a difference in connection quality and in lag in this new setup, or maybe matchup time? Does it feel different, or maybe a little?
I think actually it's pretty clear. I mean, they did 2 separate changes, and I think they even maybe did something else too today, being Friday.
Yeah, they did something for a couple hours today.
Right. So yesterday, making that Thursday after both changes, played some Iron Banner. Things felt fine. I think overall I had one game where a red bar was giving me a hard time, and decided I had my bounties done. I want to play some skirmish because 6s are a little much for me right now. And Swain and I jumped into some skirmish, and it was like we had been hanging out on the main street and had took a turn down an alley, and the warriors were waiting for us with their thorns and snipers. And I was just like, where are we? And it was just like clearly sweats. Everyone's waving, which is
shout out to that
if
team
I want to get
of
that,
No
but-
Land Beyond guys that were wrecking us.
Hey, we came back and beat them the second game.
We did, but I did get a nice little message from the blueberry on their team.
You forgot what your primary was, I heard.
Yeah. It's hard to use your primary when you can't get sniped.
Honestly, like, I know that there's bigger problems out there, and overall the change to matchmaking is a good thing. I'm not sitting here going like, well, I say we stick with the skill-based, but a cool side effect of that is playing a skirmish game and running into a good team and either winning or losing, but, waving off heavy and not worrying about all that nonsense, and then getting a message that says, GG, you want to play another war. And then you stay in the search and you play them again and you say GG again. And it's like, cool. Like, I don't even have to do much interaction. I don't have to invite them to my fire team. I don't have to sit in orbit to match up. I could just be like, these guys are going to play by certain standards and we'll be respectful and let's do it. And that was pretty cool.
I will say that one thing I might miss if they go full back to, the way it was without the skill-based matchmaking in every playlist, I might find it hard to, I'm so used to waving off heavy now.
Well, so let's talk about this. I don't know if we've ever actually spelled it out on the show before. You fly into a sweaty old playlist like Classic 3v3, and the enemy team waves at you because they want to say hello, and they think you're nice. They want to say hi. And then you get the notification Heavy's coming, and they begin frantically waving again because they're so excited about Heavy, and they just want to convey that excitement. No, that's not accurate. That is not true. In fact, that wave is loaded with meaning. What they are saying is, hey, you guys want to skip Heavy? Well, sweaty rules.
Sweaty rules.
In.
Ever since the change in December, I would say almost every single skirmish game we've played, someone's waved.
Yep.
During heavy, and I love it. I love playing with that heavy in skirmish. It makes it, much more fun. A lot more tactics than, here comes heavy, and they're gonna chain heavy, and we're just gonna spawn and get shot by a rocket launcher for 2 minutes?
Oh, it's so boring.
Till the next Heavy comes around.
Yeah.
I should say be careful, because if you're playing maybe 2v2 fire teams in a Thrace playlist, you've got one person in there, and even if 2/3 of the team waves off Heavy and that third guy just wants to say hi, it's not always clear. So maybe if you're playing this team for the first time, you just sort of stay near Heavy, see if they're going to pick it up, and let them make the first move. If you make it past that first 30 seconds or so and no one picks it up, you're in the clear.
Yeah, my buddy who sent me the message picked up Heavy, even though we waved it off. So he's a nice guy. So, I mean, back to the Iron Banner. Iron Banner was fun this week so far, and like you said, you can only get so much of 6s, before it gets frustrating. But before, I didn't really feel the lag so much, but it seems like everybody else is, getting some relief. So maybe those who had, mid to mediocre, internet connections are feeling a little bit better now.
Well, speaking of limited PvP events, we've got a new one coming up that is even more limited, even more exclusive, even more alluring. Crimson doubles. And we finally found out what's actually going on in the doubles, and I really like the new feature.
So what's the deal here? It's doubles elimination.
Yep.
You're not playing skirmish. You don't have an objective. It's just kill the other team round by round.
Light level advantages are not turned on either. So you can use
No, they
whatever
aren't.
you want.
Pull out some of those fun year one guns. Let's go ahead and say you're, 1-1 Synesthete, your Badger CCL,
Your Necrocal.
your Necro Chesma. It's all fair game. They're all going to work just fine. Yeah, maybe we'll be seeing some old friends we haven't seen in a long time.
What makes Crimson doubles special?
So what happens is, if your teammate is dead, in an elimination round, it doesn't last forever, but if you're the last one alive on your team, you get a buff. So when you become enraged with the broken heart buff, you are maybe unstoppable. Not literally, but you're going to be a force to be reckoned with. And the other team either has to really team up and make sure they're both putting damage on you, or one of them is going to get the buff as well, and it will just be two titans facing off. I mean titans in the sense of like ancient Greek monsters that fought through the skies, not the class, but it's
Maybe
going to
those
be
two.
interesting.
One thing that I think is really going to become an important mechanic is the revive mechanic. Playing trials, guarding those ghosts is so key. Picking up your teammates is so key. Fast revive exotics are a hit. You can really turn the tide very quickly, but so much of pulling off revive successfully is positioning and speed and getting where you need to go. And when all of a sudden it's 1v1 and you're rotating around the map, and then you've got essentially two superheroes, two max agility superheroes, both trying to defend one ghost while booking it to their own ghost, I think we're going to see some pretty close back and forths. I think some of these rounds are going to be just kind of crazy tennis volleys that just keep going on forever, which it's kind of sound fun. It's more fun than getting collapsed on in a 1v3 when your trials ticket and that round doesn't go your way.
So you can complete each other's bounties, which is an interesting mechanic that hasn't been available before. Right? If you have, I don't know what any of the bounties are, but if say Bones here gets a few kills, it's going to count towards my bounties as well.
I just want that pretty ghost.
The pretty ghost.
That looks awesome.
Give me the pretty ghost.
Give me the ghost.
So what we got ghosts. We got a couple new shaders.
Yep.
We've got an emblem. We've got what only appears to be a piece of heart-shaped candy, which
It's a heart-shaped candy that offers you a buff as far as like experience goes. So boosts your experience gain on all equipped weapons for 30 minutes.
I've learned recently not everyone does this, that every time they get a legendary weapon, they diligently pour motes into it to level it up to get 5 legendary marks out of it instead of 3 legendary marks, because they've got sort of early Taken King depression mentality where they've ran out of all of their planetary materials and now are obsessed with just building up large stocks of planetary materials so that they'll never go broke again. Apparently not everyone has that mindset, but let me tell you, I do. And so something that boosts my my weapon experience and lets me get through more gear with fewer motes is a welcome addition.
That sounds obsessive.
Yeah, well, we all play the game in different ways, Bones.
Oh, you
Ease
know
off.
what way I want to play the game? With the Hotline Bling dance. That's all I want.
Yeah, we don't really ever talk about silver on this podcast, but I am going to drop as much silver as it takes.
I got
into that.
1,500 waiting on my account, and I know the first thing I'm buying.
Well, guys, should we talk about it? It's been a little salty recently in the world of Destiny. I feel like I got something to say. This is going to be tricky. Let me see if I can say it right. So let me start off by saying, if you have legitimate complaints about the game of Destiny, then more power to you. You're right. There are all sorts of things in Destiny that are not perfect, and I would like to see them get fixed as well. And I'll go a step further. I'll say, if you feel like the problems in Destiny, and they're real, like, I got no problem saying, Bungie, this game ain't perfect. And while I've seen update after update after update improving some things incrementally, there's still a long way to go, no doubt. And there might be some stuff that we're waiting till 2016, 2017. Who knows how long for, if ever we get it. And if you feel a need to talk about that, then again, more power to you. But one thing really bugs me, and that's when people say, well, those Crucible Radio guys, they don't want to mess up their relationship with Bungie. I can just say right now, we've collectively given John Wisniewski so much crap. It is so much fun to do, and I recommend everyone try it. But let me say this. I just look at this game in a different way. And
I think we all do.
I don't expect
all
you
three of us do.
Yeah, I don't expect you to see it the same way, but let me just throw this other alternative out, because this is what lets me play this game and have fun without being consumed by being upset by the things that aren't perfect with it. I think of this game like soccer, like basketball, like snowboarding. It's a sport. I go in there to play the exact same thing day after day. Same maps, same classes. Let's be honest, same guns. It's not about getting something new and shiny to make it interesting, because the fundamental thing is interesting. And hey, when new stuff comes along, beautiful. I love an update. I love changing up my loadout. I love exploring something that I never took the time to do. I love learning a new PvP map, figuring out all the angles. But even without that, I keep coming back to this thing because I like it at its core. And so when people say, and I don't mean to stereotype, but when people say, this is unbelievable, they took my money and they haven't given me anything, where's the new content? What I hear is like, hey, when are they going to add some new rules to soccer? Soccer's getting a little bit boring, you know? It's like, it's soccer. Soccer's soccer. You don't need to change anything. Like, you could. There'd be some fun stuff. I actually thought it would be fun if they gave the goalies on both teams sleeping pills at the beginning of the match. So it got easier and easier to score goals. The pressure went up. Like, that would be hilarious. And I hope the people in charge of soccer take this into consideration. But that doesn't mean I don't like soccer without that. You know,
why won't they add more cards to the deck, huh? We've been playing with the same 52 for years.
Right. Joker doesn't count. What, you could charge me extra for Jokers?
How come there's only 12 tones in music?
Yeah, when are they going to add some more days to the week, right? Like Saturday, Sunday.
The weekend
They had those since
pack.
the beginning. Yeah, right? So sick of this same weekend, you know?
So I would like to remind people, if they're listening to us, we try and take this position because we just want to get better at soccer. I mean, Destiny. We want to practice gunplay. We want to practice our mind skills with sports psychologist Steve. We want to find the interesting ways to get better at this sport that we're playing. That's the way I see it. I see it as a hobby. I come home and I like playing Destiny because it's my hobby. It gets me out of my mind from the day, gets me into an alternate world where, the gunplay is smooth and I can, play SRL, or I can shoot aliens in the Cosmodrome or shoot someone else across my internet connection.
Real human people.
Yeah.
Who want to go up against you.
For me, it's like painting, or it's like any other thing that you would do in your free time. And I enjoy it in its state, and I enjoy trying to get better at it, because getting better at it will mean I will enjoy it more.
That is so key, right? Like, I'm not going to say this game is boring, there's nothing left for me to do, if there's still room for me to improve. And if you've played with me before, I have my moments, but I got room to improve. So until I'm at the top of that leaderboard, until I can stomp through every single last Trials ticket, I wouldn't mind a new map, but I don't need one, because the new content is in me, improving my skills, learning how to get better. And hey, you come hang out with us in the Slack, you check out my boy Bones' stream or my friend Swain's stream. Maybe you see birds hang out there once in a blue moon, and you play with us, and you realize we're not bored with the map because it's not about the map. That's just the soccer field to us. The interesting part is what happens when we load in and we say, I'm going to do 1% better this time. So keep on saying what needs to get said. Don't settle for anything less than you want.
They're listening.
They're listening, believe it or not. But when we're not angry about it, and when we don't truck with people who are only angry about it, I hope you can accept that it's not because we're kissing Bungie's butt. It's because we love this thing. And I think people who listen to the show love it too. So I don't know. Sappy speech over, but I felt like it had to be said.
Can I talk about that loving the game thing a little bit?
Please.
Yeah.
That it's been a disappointing couple weeks on both Bungie's side and the community side. I've been trying to stay out of it, and obviously, I mean, we just spent a few minutes explaining why we sometimes come across as everything's okay, but obviously it's not. I'll preface also what I'm saying by the fact that there's been a shift in the executive positions at Bungie. I'm in no place to comment on how that works or what's really going on. I don't think Reddit gets any credit for that as much as they'd love to believe so, but that expresses some, reality that things were not going well, and hopefully they will go well in the future, which does validate a lot of complaints lately. But what always seems to come up around these times is this whole thing about how much we love the game. And I believe it was about a year and a half ago now, sometime in the early months of Destiny, in the untamed wilds of Reddit, in some deep recess of some thread, where someone was kind of like, man, why does everyone get so angry if they play this game so much? And someone out there said, we complain because we care and we know it could be better, which is why we complain. And right there in that moment, the logic worked fine and it was a good answer. But from that spawned this idea that I can say anything and follow it with, I just love the game, and that makes it okay. And I can do ridiculous things like tweet at Deej all day long. Like, RIP his Twitter, because, wow, people just say things to Deej when it's like, dude, he's just talking about how much he loves Rift once in a while, and you're just like, hey, why isn't this purple engram? I digress. But it's not a validation for the insanity that has occurred. That's not enough for me anymore for someone to be like, well, I'm fired up because I care a lot too, but for some reason have managed to, against all odds for me, stay out of a lot of things. So yes, there are very, very valid complaints. Something is not great about Destiny right now. The Crucible is in a sort of sad state from what we've seen in the past and what we want it to be. Yes, all of that is real. But you really got to walk a fine line when you're actually responding to things about it on the internet. It crushes my heart to see people use phrases like psychologically manipulating and they lied to us and all this stuff. Like, okay, whatever. But this is a company and we are just people who bought a video game. And I've gotten so much more out of this game for the money I spent than any other game. I can spend $60 right now and get a brand new video game and play it for 0.04% of my total Destiny time, for lack of a better number to use.
I would also like to add that I met some of my best friends currently in my life because of this game.
Yeah. And we can still enjoy each other's company right now.
Let me ask you guys this. And when I say you guys, I mean our listeners. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. I think we got pretty lucky on this show. We've got some of the best listeners out there, and we appreciate so much you keep tuning in. But every time I stop by Rahul's Salt Emporium and I scroll down, I have to ask myself, and I have to ask everyone, what do you want the Destiny community to be like? The thing that attracted me to Destiny, first and foremost, is it's super fun. I love it. But the community seemed different. It seemed like different from every other game. It wasn't Call of Duty.
Yeah.
There weren't There weren't angry people saying terrible things to strangers. Instead, it was different. There was people like building, like 3D printing guns and drawing art and assembling stories like movies and sagas and building on top of this game to create something really beautiful. And that's what I love about the Destiny community. And I don't think it's ever gone away. But there's another voice there that forgets about all that. And it just focuses on, I don't like this thing. And you don't have to put your blinders on and pretend that there's a thing there and you don't like it. But when that's the entire conversation, that's just not a community I want to be a part of. So, what happens in Fireteam chat stays in Fireteam chat. We all got strong opinions, no doubt. But when you participate in the Destiny community as a whole, are you going to be a role model for what it ought to be? Regardless of whether you liked what came across in the most recent update or not? Or are you going to say, screw this, took my money, never going to play this game again, blah, 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 blah. You want to take hostages? Is the Destiny community home of the $40 hostage? Not for me. I don't know. Guys, that was some heartfelt right there. But we got to get out of this headspace.
Oh, yeah.
We got to get in the moment. We got to focus. We got to wreck.
I need to snipe some Goonies.
Let's get hype. And I've got a suggestion. Let's talk to perhaps...
No suggestions, you're banned.
Oh, hey.
Sick.
Fair
Wreck.
turnaround. I've had a good run. Thank you all. Goodbye forever.
Bye, birds. You're off the team.
See ya. No, let's talk to my perhaps favorite guest of all time. He's back for, I don't know, what are it, 3 times? Definitely not the last time. He's dropping some wisdom, and he's going to help us get our heads right. It's sports psychologist Steve.
That's right. He's a certified sports psychologist. He also works with people in the military, and he's been crossing over his knowledge to the gaming world. He's been on this show if you're a longtime listener, and he helps us get in the right mindset, and he also helps us keep playing better as we go on and sink hours into this game that we love. And he's here with more stuff, how to control the salt, how to get better, and how to overall just have a good time.
You want to be a top-notch competitor? You listen to this coming up. But first, like we do, time for a musical break.
I don't wanna wait for summer to come, 'cause I'm warming up with you in my arms. Some might say the cold is no.
Music this week, care of Chase K, singer-songwriter from the Los Angeles area. You can check him out. It's chasekmusic.com. If you make music and you'd like to be featured on the show, just shoot us an email. It's crucibleradio@gmail.com. Looking forward to working with you.
Put on that old raincoat and jump right in the mud.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crucible Radio. I know you just stepped out for a few hours. Everyone pauses on the musical intro or musical break. They stretch, maybe get a glass of water.
To go get some air.
Yeah, get some air.
Go for a
Anyways,
hike.
you're back. We're back. And we have a very special guest, a fan favorite. Sports psychologist Steve is back on the show. Hello, Steve.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Welcome
It's
back.
good. How are you?
It's a record. It's a record for
What do I
guests.
get for that record? Do I get a really good drop for that?
You get about like 30 minutes of talking.
Oh, okay. I really wanted that perfect 1,000-yard stare, or else I was gonna rage quit.
Wait, you don't rage quit.
It's yours. Dark secrets. So we got Iron Banner Rift on this week. It's Iron Banner. People are bringing in the fire teams. And if that wasn't enough, it is also Rift. And it really requires teams to work together and to keep that communication up, to really work towards the objective and get those dunks. And some people have been having some luck. Some people have been having some frustration. And we were hoping you could give us a little insight into sort of those skills we can take into the Crucible, the team skills, the individual skills. How are we going to pull this through and get the V in Iron Banner Rift?
I will do my best to help out and give some tips that everybody can use. What I like about Rift with the Iron Banner is the emphasis that it's putting on teamwork. So really important to be able to communicate and also be able to know your roles. And there are definitely some tips that are out there in terms of the mental game that you can do to improve the communication that you use and the building that cohesion so that everybody understands what their role is on a team.
You know, in past episodes, we've sort of talked about the idea of having a team captain. That's maybe like a trials or a threes thing where one person's calling the play for a round, and then you have the other two guys, and so those are your two roles. But in Rift, there's jobs to do, right? Somebody's got to be picking up that spark. Someone's clearing the way. Maybe somebody's working the spawns. What are the sort of different roles you see in a complex objective 6 mode like that?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different roles that can be played. And what I like about Rift is everybody's not trying to be the guy that gets the most kills. So there are specific roles that you can play, and call outs are always going to be one of them that everybody should be trying to do. But how about like cover fire and team fire and you know, playing sort of with another person and moving with another person? Revives obviously aren't something that, you know, you can use for Rift, but also flanks, and then obviously, as you mentioned, like the spark runner too.
Now, is that the kind of thing that a team can just sort of work out on the fly when you're going into the match, or do you want to designate someone to be the spark runner, someone to be working the flank, somebody to be you know, a couple people team shooting?
I would say the best plan would be to decide that stuff, you know, right up front, because it's probably going to have an impact on the build that you have, what subclass you're going to use, and some of the weapons that you're going to use as well. I'm sure you guys have suggestions for, you know, specific builds that you would use if you wanted to be the spark runner, as opposed to somebody that's going to lay down some good cover fire and somebody that's going to be on the sides that are picking people off with the snipes.
I had a lot of fun being the guy to kind of follow the spark runner and use the radar to call out where they should go and say, you know, don't run in there just yet. Let's go around, or let's go to the left, or let's go outside. And I found I had way more fun doing that than actually carrying the spark myself. So I feel like you can sort of treat it like a soccer match or something where there's forwards and midfielders and stuff. And there's that one floater position that just gets to do a little bit of everything. I feel like there's definitely something you can designate for everyone. But hopefully everyone doesn't want to carry the spark, because then it's an issue.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are specific roles that people can play, and I think it's important in terms of cohesion with a 6-person team that everybody's role is valued, right? So there is value in every person that's on the team and every role that those people are playing, whether it's the guy that's following the spark, like you were talking about, Bones, or whether it's the guy that's sitting in the back that's sniping, or whether it's obviously the person that's bringing the spark to the Rift.
I think a lot of us get trained playing, you know, Clash 6s, where the number on the scoreboard and the ranking is really the indicator of who was slaying that match. And on Rift, that sort of gets turned on its head, because the Spark Runner's points are just astronomically higher than anyone aside from just the most complete slayer, you know, picking up all the kills. And I can feel a lot of pressure when I'm not the person carrying the Rift to be like, oh, I'm at the bottom of the scoreboard. I'm not helping my team. What am I doing? And that's definitely sort of an intellectual thing I can understand, but it's tough when you see you're down at the bottom of the leaderboard to think, hey, I contributed to this match and helped get us the win.
Yeah, I think you just have to understand, like Bones was saying, you know, on a soccer team, you've got guys that are required to score the ball, right? And you're a striker, and you've got forwards, but you also have midfielders, and they have specific roles and responsibilities that they play. You have defenders, and you have a goalkeeper. And I think that philosophy applies to Rift specifically as a game type, where all of those players and all of those roles are valuable and really integral to sustain success, not just winning one match.
I think the scoreboard in Destiny, just the way it works, the way it has a point system as opposed to just pure kills, I think it's a huge distraction for people. And it was kind of messing me up last night playing some Iron Banner Rift, seeing myself do terribly, and I'm like, wow, I have thousands of less points. It's like, okay, they had a carry one time. It doesn't mean that they're not good just because they carried the Rift, or that they made a good play, but it's so distracting to think that I need to move myself up the scoreboard when it just doesn't matter. And we say that like almost ironically at this point. It's like, hey, the stats don't matter. Don't look at your KD. But seriously, if you're hitting your center button to pull up your ghosts 5 times a match, then you're distracted completely and you're just like, well, better go get as many kills as possible. And then you're just doing the bloodlust thing and it just falls apart from there.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're obviously looking for that one bounty where, you're the top scorer or there's a specific bounty for carrying the spark, it really doesn't matter, right?
Not at all. So we talked a little bit last week with Ramblin' about call-outs and being really good communicator. And I hear you got something called the 3 C's.
Yeah, I really liked that interview that you had with Ramblin', and the first time I saw that video of him doing the full trot,
I know,
oh my
right?
God, that was incredible.
Ridiculous.
I mean, that was really some incredible skill. But what I liked what he was talking about was a couple of things. He talked about map awareness, which was really cool, and we can talk about that a little bit further. But communication being so big and call outs being big, and I look forward to that video that he records where he's got one teammate and he's doing all the call outs and Ramblin's just going around and just messing people up. But there are 3 C's, Swain. You're right about effective communication. We could talk about that a little bit further.
I know I need to work on it a little bit. And Birds talked about it last week too. His communication isn't always clear. It's like, oh, he's over
I got
on
that
the
nasty
thing.
pause right in the middle where I start the idea and then I think for a minute and then I finish the call out. And it's not helping anyone at that point.
That person has moved halfway across the map.
They've already revived and they've already moved to another one.
And I'm dead and he's killing me now.
So the 3 C's with effective communication are clear, confident, and control. And what I mean by those 3, we can break them down. Clear, you were mentioning it already, being very clear with what it is that you want to communicate to the person. So if it's a specific location or a spawn point, you want to be clear with giving that information to your teammates. Also, confidence. So you want to say it with confidence. And what does that sound like? So tone, pace, volume, all of that is going to have an impact on how you communicate with your teammates. And then controlled. So you want to be in control, obviously, of your emotions, but you also want to be in control of your speech, too. So you don't want to overreact. You want to be very confident and clear with the direction that you're giving to your teammates in any of those game types, whether it's trials or any of the other ones.
I mean, if anyone needs an example of controlled call-outs, I mean, it would be Dr. Lupo from that Ramblin' video you mentioned. One thing I've been thinking about a little bit is sort of the role that hype plays when you're playing. I mean, we talked about the tournament a while back and just the crazy hype going on. And there's so much energy when you're loud and there's just a buzz that's flowing back and forth between the players. But control is separate from that, I'm kind of realizing. You can be really, really high energy and be a little loose and be a little sputtering and not be focused. And then you can be super high energy but totally focused. And the focus and the energy sort of play off of each other. And that just kind of, in my experience, comes from who you're playing with. That works for some teams. There's others where you're just cool as a cucumber and you've got that control. You're quiet, you're not talking loud, there's not a lot of other distractions. That control can kind of manifest in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think you need to know your teammates. The more you play with your teammates, the more you'll understand what kind of call outs are they expecting from you. And also let them know what kind of call outs do you want. I think it was a while back, but I think Bones was actually talking about some call outs when he was sniping and he was in the Last Guardian stand and he was talking about how one of his teammates was doing a countdown of when the enemy was going to come around the corner, like 3, 2, 1, fire. And it was like easy mode sniping for him. And if that's something that you like, then tell your teammates that and they can work that out, have that extra intelligence coming into you.
Sometimes I am Bones' keen scout.
There you go.
It's like I'm playing Warlock, but I've got the Hunter perk.
Swain is the drone all the way up in the sky giving Bones the information that he needs.
It's because I'm always dead.
That's a topic for another episode.
Yeah, if I'm not getting my callouts, where are they? Where are they? Where?
I'm still alive, damn it.
Yeah, and Bones, that's probably not helping either. So,
well, you'd be surprised.
just reminding them, I need those call outs.
So when things are going our way, we've got a good momentum, we're up, we're maybe on a streak. It's easy to sort of focus on, okay, what's my role? What am I doing? How am I making call outs? Am I being clear, confident, controlled, and focusing on those, or at least keeping them at the front of your mind? But when things are going poorly and the stress is coming up, a lot of those concerns go out the window, and you just think, how are we going to hold this together possibly and pull out the win? We've talked a ton about tilt on this show, but that's because it's universal. I mean, it's something that everyone experiences. And especially when you've got maybe 2 losses in a row and it starts to build on itself, it can be really just tough to get out of that mindset. I mean, it just comes on so quick and it's so hard to get out of sometimes. Do you have any tips for resetting the tilt? Or maybe just repeating the ones we've talked about many times before?
Yeah, well, definitely building on the ones that we've talked about before. Obviously, the more practice you get, we've talked about that, the better you'll be able to reset from that tilt. But I think what you were talking about there, Birds, was where tilt comes from. And oftentimes, tilt comes from losing focus on the task at hand and what's happening in the moment right now and starting to think about the stuff that happened prior or previous, and then also some of the things that are about to happen. So if you do have a couple of games in a row where you perform poorly and you're focused more on those, your focus isn't on the task at hand. Or if you're looking ahead, maybe you're in a trials match and you're looking on Destiny Trials Report and you're starting to see how these guys have, really high rankings, you're starting to predict how they're going to do. And now, again, you're not focused on the matches starting, the task at hand. So there's actually some mindfulness tips that you can use to get yourself focused back in on the moment at hand.
Go on.
So one of the cool ones that I've learned having working with the military population is what they call a 3x3 grounding exercise. And the rumor has it is that this came up from some old legendary snipers, and I have no proof to put that out there for everybody. So if there is
like
that
LDR?
Yeah, so one of those old Guardians came up with this back from the Twilight Gap. I don't know. But the exercise is a 3x3 grounding exercise to get you back in the moment. And it's a really simple, quick thing that you can do. So I'll walk you through the exercise, and if one of you guys wants to do it, feel free to let me know and I can walk you through it.
Let's do it.
All right.
Can we all do
You
it?
said it. Well, if you all talk at the same time, it's going to be kind of weird.
Okay,
So
Swain's the guinea pig.
Swain can do it, and then you guys can kind of like do it in your head. That sounds dirty. All right, Swain. So all this is you're going to give me an answer to the 3 questions that I ask you, essentially. So the first thing I want you to do is I want you to get mindful in the moment, and I want you to tell me 3 things that you see currently.
Cookies, microphone, and water.
Okay, good. Now I want you to tell me 3 things that you hear currently.
Sports psychologist Steve.
All right, that's a good one.
My stomach.
Okay.
Cars going by.
Okay. It might be a little bit difficult when you have headphones on, right? But then the third one would be 3 things that you feel physically. So 3 things that you're physically feeling at the moment.
My shirt is soft.
Okay.
And the headphones on my head and the heater in my room.
All right. And so that's the whole exercise. It's just identifying 3 things that you see, 3 things that you hear, and 3 things that you feel in the moment right now. And what that's designed to do is to get your mind focused back in on the moment that you're experiencing right now, as opposed to thinking about, again, past successes or failures, or potentially any anxiety that might be coming up for a future competition.
Okay. So it's to just get you out of that, 1,000-yard stare?
Yeah, that's some super good advice right there.
Oh,
that's an easy one.
Terrible, both of you.
Legos, chapstick, memes.
I'm always looking at memes.
And honestly, again, where that came from was you've got a sniper. He's out, in a hostile environment, and he has to remain motionless for very extended periods of time. And so it's easy for your mind to start to wander in that particular instance. And so every once in a while, his spotter will remind him to remain mindful, stay in the moment, and they use this 3x3 exercise to make sure that they're ready if they need to potentially take a shot.
That's so awesome because one of the things I've been having issues with, and this could partially be solved if I just played less, but when you put in those like long sessions, and especially with the trials ticket, obviously you want to do a trials ticket in one sitting, but that's 7 to 9 games if you're depending on how many boons you can buy. And with the way games are different every game, I mean, you can steamroll a few and just feel good and get in the zone, but then a different team comes along and they're playing more passive or something like that. It's so easy for me to just slip out of it at like game 6 and just, rush into the middle like I was the last game and forgetting that there's 3 entirely different opponents. So that's a really great tool for just thinking like, okay, back to square one here. We are starting a game. It's the same map. I know that, but these are different people and I'm, feeling it out for the first time again, as opposed to just kind of getting worn down by the long hours of a few trials runs and stuff like that. So I'm definitely going to try to use that.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for stuff like this to use with Bones so that I can get him back on track.
It's necessary, man. I need
like,
focus
Bones,
in my life.
What do you see in your room?
Memes.
Memes.
All your Twitch subscribers.
Yeah.
Just have a MooBot command that says, what do you see in the room?
That's actually a good idea.
And that's not a bad idea. I know one thing I do when I get tilty is I start to focus on what just went wrong and say, okay, what did I do wrong? What can I do different? Oh, I double peaked. I shouldn't have peaked twice, or I was too slow on that. I need to have faster reaction time. And I think that's sort of not just beating myself up, but sort of constructive analysis. That's not a bad instinct to have, but there's a time and a place for it. And when you're in the middle of a trials ticket, that's the wrong time to be doing that. And it's very hard for me to have a bad round and think like, okay, I got to fix it. I got to do something. But really the best thing I can do is just reset, right? Do a 3x3, go into it with a clear head, not thinking about what I'm going to do or what I'm not going to do. Because if I've got the skills to beat these guys, I've got the skills. If I don't have the skills, then I'm not ready. And there's nothing I can do in the moment to fix any bigger picture problems.
Yeah, Burrs, it sounds like what you're talking about is paralysis by analysis. I'm sure you guys have heard that before, right? And there is a time and a place to analyze your performance, but it's usually not during the performance. What that usually does, it actually gets in the way of you getting into that flow state or that zone and just letting it happen. So, during practice, you want to be focused on improving, a specific target, a specific skill. But then once the performance happens, you kind of want to just let it go and then be able to get into that flow, that zone. And so pre-performance routines like the 3x3 exercise, like doing some of the deliberate breathing that we talked about in a previous exercise, that'll get you locked in so that when the performance starts, you're ready to go.
All right. We'll all report back next week when we do our week in review, when we've had a chance to try this stuff out. I wanted to shift gears a little bit, though. This has been a very tense week in the Destiny community. If you spend any time on Reddit or, you've gone on Twitter or even read Kotaku, I mean, you've heard a lot of discontent in the community. And I think, no lie, that's in response to some very real issues that people have with the game. I mean, no one is free from lag, free from bad drops, free from having to wait a long time for a match to get made. But it seems like sometimes that conversation can almost sort of overtake the actual business of playing this game. And that frustration will stay with you. I mean, it's easy to get fed up with stuff that we've dealt with for a long time and have that color our whole experience. That is ultimately the experience I really like. I just love playing Destiny, whether there's new stuff or not. It's just the thing I like to do. When we're thinking about sort of bigger picture problems like that, how do I deal with that frustration that builds up over time, that's with me over a week, that's with the whole community over an extended period of time?
Yeah, those are good questions, and I definitely agree that there are some big picture issues that the Destiny community is dealing with, and I visited Rahul's Salt Emporium. I cracked up.
That's not just a burn. That's the title of the subreddit right now. Yeah. That is what it says online.
That's too funny. And there are some valid arguments that are up there, and some maybe not so valid arguments, but it really depends what you want to get out of the game, right? So there are some people that have been playing this game quite a bit for the last, 15 months or so that it's been out, and they are at a point where it's really hard to get better. It's harder to see any performance improvements, and that's to be expected. So if you think about a baseball player, and he's the best player on his little league team, he moves up into a high school team, and it's all the best little league players playing on the high school team. And then if he's good enough, he gets a scholarship, he goes to college. And now he's playing with and against all the best players from high school. They're all playing on his team or they're playing against him. And if he's lucky enough and good enough and talented enough to get drafted into a professional ball club, he'll work his way through the minor leagues. And again, you'll see this progression of the best playing with each other and playing against each other. And eventually what you see is what we call a ceiling effect. So the improvements of your performance become very small and a lot harder to see. When you're first learning anything new, there's very easy and monumental jumps in performance. But once you get to a high level of mastery, it becomes much more difficult for you to see those performance improvements. And honestly, that's where someone like myself comes in and can work with you on the mental game, because that's usually the difference maker between the guys that are, high minor league prospects and the ones that make it to the big leagues is the ones that can not only have the physical skill set and the tactical and technical skill set, but also the mental skill set as well.
So one of the things that kind of gets me off track is when, I want to make progress and I want to get better, but I guess what really irks me and stuff like that is getting off topic. And not that everyone needs to be so super focused on the game and not have fun while they're playing, but that's kind of the point, though, is to have fun. We can have fun taking it seriously or not, but there's this thing that happens when something goes wrong in the game and it bugs you in the moment. It bugs me in the moment. I easily get frustrated if lag causes me to lose on game 9 of a trials ticket. You bet I will flip out and say my signature phrase, unbelievable. Like, I love to do that, but that happened, and then I go pick up another ticket and I get back in the game. It's just like, all right, let's go. But that can happen, and it can devolve into this conversation about like lag. Oh man, I saw this tweet earlier. Like, Bungie hasn't posted a blog in so long. It's like, how do you prevent that from going on? How do you prevent just getting caught up in it? Like, kind of like what Birds was saying earlier, just like it seeps into your game. Like, how do you shut that out just for a few hours to actually play for a little bit?
Well, I think part of it is adjusting the goals that you have. So we talked about what proper goals, what good goals would be, but I think we can explore that a little bit further, especially with those players that have been playing for a long time. So one thing that you can do is, instead of striving for significant performance improvements like we were talking about, is striving for consistency. Mm-hmm. So maintaining a consistent approach, a consistent kill to death ratio, things like that would help you. But also, instead of focusing so much on kill death outcomes, thinking about more like the process. So focusing on improving, we talked about communication and call outs already, but like Ramblin was talking about his positioning within a map and within a specific round in trial. So limiting being out in the open, having different areas where he could get shot from multiple directions. Also limiting charging forward after death. And I would rephrase that a little bit. Instead of limiting those things, talking about, look, when I have that respawn timer, I'm going to come up with a plan of where I'm going to go next, as opposed to just, going right into it. Or working on just being with a teammate, learning how they play and learning how to team shot, and potentially even learning sniper lanes. So those are all specific goals that you can have that are less reliant on others and less reliant on those outcome variables like kill to death ratio. Yeah. And that'll limit your frustration, I think.
No, that's a good point. Yeah, have it focus on like what I can do. It's my game, whatever. And there's obviously going to be a next game. I mean, I get the frustration and experience the frustration when it's like, well, this means I'm starting my trials ticket over. But in the grand scheme of things, that is one game out of hundreds of trials games over the course of a few months. And obviously, it can easily go better the next time.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Trials is so tricky too because it's so binary, right? You either make it to the lighthouse or you don't. And I know I've had tickets where we lost at 8 games and I walk away from it, and for the next 5 minutes, it's like, oh, dear, I was so close. We screwed it up and I choked. And what I forget is like, oh, you won 8 games. Like you are 8/9 of the way there. You can be proud of smaller things than that. But maybe we focus less on sort of these binary sort of pass-fail kind of situations. And even something like KD can be a little tricky because it just depends so much how good your connection is, who you get matched up with. Are there other sort of things I can set as my goal, game over game over game, that are a little more predictable and are a little more attainable for me to make consistent progress on and consistently, achieve the same level I set for myself?
Yeah, I think some of those things that we mentioned before, like, for example, learning sniper lanes and getting to those locations and understanding where somebody can shoot you from, where somebody can't shoot you from. That's all in your control, right? So you're not relying on your teammates for that. You're not the opponents that you're going up against. That's something that you can do. I wouldn't suggest doing that in a trials ticket because now you're in a competitive environment. I think when you get to the competitive environment, in order to get the most enjoyment out of it, you can adjust the mindset that you have going into it. The research shows that there are 2 different types of mindset that performers can have that can either cultivate frustration or help you avoid frustration, and it actually impacts your progression towards mastery. That's a lot of words. Sorry about that.
Yeah, there's some solid words right there. I think we're chewing.
Okay. So the 2 mindsets that I was referring to, there's the growth and the fixed mindset. And this comes from a book that was written. The name of the book, coincidentally, is Mindset. So you can take a look at that. It's pretty easy to remember at this point. But the growth mindset and the fixed mindset, as I mentioned, it impacts progression towards mastery. And it's how you view different categories or different traits. And so when it comes to things, I'll go through all 5 of them. The first one is how failure is viewed. So people that fall into this fixed mindset view failure as reoccurring and something that they don't have much control over, and that there's nothing that can be gained from it. Whereas somebody with a growth mindset is able to look at failure and see, hey, look, I can improve in these specific areas. This is temporary. I'll be able to get over these failures. And that's just one of the characteristics of how having a different mindset can approach, your level of frustration or your level of enjoyment for a specific activity. And there are 4 more of those areas as well.
Let's hear number 2.
So the next one, so the next area is obstacles and dealing with uncomfortable situations. So those people that are in that fixed mindset tend to avoid obstacles and challenges and those uncomfortable situations, whereas people that have that growth mindset, they embrace obstacles. They embrace putting themselves in uncomfortable situations and overcoming that.
So I've noticed with obstacles, there's some pretty typical ones you can run into. I know for me, one of the things that can spook me for sure is going up against a really good sniper, just like one of those psychic snipers who just guesses every time you come around a corner. But the more I play, the more I realize that there's obstacles that might not even involve the enemy team. One thing is who's on my team. I mean, Iron Banner is one of those times where you're playing with a lot of people. You're always trying to find 6, and sometimes you might be in a party with people that you've never played before. And there's just some people I don't gel with. We have different styles, or we're on a different pace, or we have different strategies. And it's one thing to say like, okay, this guy isn't psychic. He can't snipe me around every corner. I can get around this. It can be very frustrating when it's on my team and this is somebody I can talk to, and I've got to try and find a way to work around that obstacle or try and improve that or accept it for what it is and play my best in spite of it. It's almost easier to deal with the other team than it is to deal with communication challenges with my own group.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what else to say, but that is absolutely true. if you can embrace that, you're in good shape.
Mute and party chat works really well, I found.
For sure.
That's why you're
Anyways.
never responding to me.
That, or I muted myself accidentally and have not realized yet. Just wondering why no one's listening to my call outs
listen.
3,000 hours into this game, and that still happens on a daily basis.
all the time. You wouldn't believe it.
Like, Birds, is your mic muted? Like, oh yeah, I was just talking to.
No, it's
Thinking about-
2 minutes later because we're in the middle of the round and I can't take my hand off the controller long enough to flip the mute back. Anyways,
Or you're like me and you have one of the cheap Xbox One headsets, and I'm already on my third one after having the thing for like a year and a half. Those things are such garbage.
so it goes. All right. So obstacles, challenges, and how you view those. That's number 2. What's number 3?
Number 3 is how effort's seen. So those with the fixed mindset see basically putting in effort as worthless. No matter how much effort I put into trying to improve on my ability to snipe, or however much effort I put into trying to improve my KD ratio, it's not going to matter. Whereas those with the growth mindset see effort as worthwhile. And even if it's incremental, small improvements, they feel like they have control over the outcome by putting in additional effort.
I like that one. I'm going to be telling that to people all the time. Fixed mindset, bro. Effort works.
Fall out of that fixed mindset. So the fourth one is how feedback's accepted. So those players, gamers, whatever it is that fall into the fixed mindset with this, they are very reluctant to receive any kind of feedback, and they see constructive criticism as just criticism, and it's a personal attack on their abilities. Those with the growth mindset, though, are very open to feedback, and they listen, they learn from feedback, they're able to take constructive criticism and internalize it, understand that it's not an attack on who they are, but it's somebody that's reaching out, trying to provide you some guidance to help you. And so those with the growth mindset are much more open and accepting of that feedback.
Well, that's good to hear. Because a little like personal anecdote here. Me and Bones were doing a trials run over the weekend, and I distinctly remember texting Bones while we were doing it, be like, "Hey, what am I doing wrong?" Because we kept running into all this the sweatiest teams ever.
Every problem in the book.
Pretty much every problem you can think of, we ran into it, and we were just texting back and forth trying to figure out what we could do better. Planning for the next match, I want that constructive criticism. I want to know, what did I mess up this time? I ran in a little bit too quick, or we're not working cohesively on getting to the middle of the map. And it's just nice.
It's so much more effective than dude, come on. Oh, like that. I understand people get frustrated, but when it's directed at someone else on your team, it's just, you're done. You're falling apart. You lose. There's no recovering from that.
You also got to be willing to be like, hey, I wasn't good that time. What can I do that's better this time? What do you think will I do this time that could improve our chances?
Yeah, and these things don't happen in isolation, Swain. So I like with what your example was, it was really interesting because it addressed several of the things that we just talked about, right? So you talked about how you had one match where you didn't perform all that well. So, what you would consider failure, but you saw that as something that you could change. And we talked about effort. So you talked about if I put in some effort, I'll be able to improve my outcome. And you talked about reaching out for feedback and being able to receive that feedback and being able to implement it. So you see how these things kind of work together if you are more in that growth mindset as opposed to the fixed mindset for that specific task.
One thing I've sort of realized, not so much in Destiny, but really just in my job and my sort of personal life, is that sometimes it's easy to sort of guess what kind of mindset a person has. And it really doesn't do anyone any favors to sort of just make up in your mind, oh, this person doesn't want to hear from me. They're going to get angry if they hear from me. I know I've learned to just sort of say, at least the very first time, at least say, hey, look, would you maybe be interested in a little completely unsolicited advice, and give them a chance to say no. And then if they say yes, really, really give them a chance to give them something small and honest. And I can't tell you how many times I've been surprised where I was just sure I was going to get shut down. And instead the person goes, oh, yeah, I guess I see that. That's really helpful. Thank you. And all of a sudden I realized, hey, this is someone who's on the wavelength. This is someone I could communicate with. But I just had to sort of carefully test the waters that first time.
Yeah, I think it depends on what kind of feedback you're given too, Bird. So if you have a relationship with somebody, that you've been playing with for a while, maybe they're more open to some of the improvement type of feedback. So here's what you could do to get better. But you also can provide feedback of what somebody's doing right and the strengths that they have, and let them know what those strengths are and how they complement your play style or your game type as well. So the last one is the success of others and how you view success of others. So those with the fixed mindset they feel threatened by the success of others, and they don't put themselves in situations where others are going to be more successful than they are. However, those that fall into the growth mindset, they don't feel threatened by other success. In fact, they get inspired by it and they learn from other success, and they're fine with putting themselves in challenging situations so that they can learn from others. And again, going back to, like, if they fail that one time, it's something that's temporary. It's something that's changeable. They have control over it. They put in effort and they can overcome it. So you can see how these all kind of work together, but it's going to have a significant impact on playing the game and how frustrated or how much enjoyment you get out of the game, and whether or not you get better at it or not.
And that's so huge too for those trying to push into that competitive world. And we've talked in the past about how it's tough to get into scrimmages and sweats, and it feels like it's this group for the elite. But putting yourself out there and saying, yeah, let's do it. You can shoot my head 8,000 times this game. I want to learn. I want to see what you did to be better than me. And watching people go into those scrimmages for the first time, or maybe they've only done it casually for fun and then really try to take it seriously, it's really cool, because there is tons of stuff to learn from someone beating you. You can watch exactly what they did, and you have the unique ability to say, I know exactly what this person is thinking, this person being you. I know exactly what was going through my head at this time. Why did I lose in that interaction? What did they do differently?
Yeah, that's the perfect environment, Bones, that you're talking about with those scrims or sweaties or whatever you want to call them now. But that's the environment where you could really see the fixed or growth mindset coming out. Somebody that's going to avoid those is somebody that's in the fixed mindset, because they have the feeling that there's going to be other people that are better than them, and they don't want to challenge themselves. They'd rather go back to non-skill based, competitive matchmaking, not to bring up a sore subject or anything, but they just want to pub stomp on people, right? They never want to get better.
Yeah.
They just want to beat up on, scrubby noobs and Christmas noobs and everybody else that's out there that's a lower light level than them.
To be fair, that is pretty fun.
Sometimes that's fun. I agree. I would like to have that option if it was possible. So hopefully Bungie's listening.
That's opening up a whole new after game, trash talk. Hey, bro, you don't have a growth mindset. Why are you pub stomping?
You're so fixed minded, bro.
Yeah, feel free to drop my name there too. That'd be great.
Well, we got some interesting questions on Twitter. There was one that jumped out at me. At Mike the Iron asks, advice on persisting at practicing a new skill, quick to give up. And I know this is one for me. I just got back into sniping. I was playing with fusions for a long time. And look, I'm not a new sniper, but I was a little bit rusty. And there's definitely a tough period where you're going to end up missing a lot more shots than landing them. And eventually I got back to where I was happy with it. But it takes some faith to get through that first part. Do you have any advice on how to sort of break into completely new territory where it's going to be a while before you're any good at it?
Yeah, listen to the last 10 minutes of this podcast about the growth mindset.
Perfect.
Honestly, that's the kind of mindset that you want to have when you're picking up something new, right? So I feel the same thing. I've tried to play around with a sniper recently. It's not something that I'm very good at, but if I can go into a 2-hour block of playing this game and just say, look, I don't really care what the outcome is at the end of the match, but I'm going to try to get better. I'm going to try to work on lining up the headshot, being able to quick scope and aim down sight properly. And, the more I do it, the better I'm going to get at it. And I'm going to try to learn, and I'm going to try to work with, one of my friends that's good at sniping and listen to his feedback. And I think rather than being quick to give up, you just trust the process. And even if you're making those incremental improvements, that's still improvements.
That's awesome.
Words to live by.
Well, Steve, it's been amazing as always. They Learned a lot, have a lot to work on, have a lot to give Bones crap about over the weekend.
That's really why we have you on the show is ammunition against our friend.
Unbelievable.
As like where So where can people find you if they're looking for more sports psych stuff?
You can find more sports psych stuff at my Twitter, which is sportspsychnyli. And I'm happy to answer additional Twitter questions on there. I appreciate you guys having me back on. This is always a good time to be able to learn how do I apply my knowledge to different environments, whether I work with athletes quite a bit and my job is working with soldiers, but applying this stuff to gaming is a lot of fun. And so I enjoy listening to you guys and your podcast and the guests that you have on, stopping by your Twitch streams and interacting with people on Twitter. So yeah, you can hit me up there.
For sure. Steve was answering questions before we even got to ask them on the show on Twitter. He was going through all the questions and just, he's just got the answer. So definitely hit him up.
So much more responsive on Twitter than I am.
Yeah, Birds, you're not.
You favorited a tweet today and it was weird. It threw me off.
Yeah. I like to throw you a bone every now and then. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on, man. This just gets better and better.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Won't you stay and fall asleep with me and be the last thing that I see?
All right, outro time, guys. Bones, that's kind of a sorry show in the intro. You want to do the outro?
Is he here?
Bones.
Nah.
Oh,
It looks like he's actually just playing Civilization.
this Division rage quit. Give me a break. Oh, we gotta wait 24 hours. Cry me a river. But actually playing some Civilization does sound all right. Let's wrap it up. Swain, what do they do?
Follow us. You can follow us everywhere. It's Crucible Radio, Facebook, Twitter, Bungie.net. Send us an email, crucibleradioslack@gmail.com. You want to be in the Slack? You want to have some fun? Shoot us an email. We'll get you in. You know all the deets. Put them in there. Thank you for listening, guys. See you next week.
Bye.
You have guaranteed access to the Tom Clancy's Division beta, my ass.